Should I tell my mom that my stepdad is putting the moves on me? AKA her husband. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My mom and I have always had a really good relationship. She's pretty much been my best friend all throughout my life. I was bullied heavily in school, so I always confided in my mom. I mean, I tell my mom everything, even about boys. When I was in high school, my parents got divorced. Right after the divorce, my mom had set her sights on this one guy. He lived in our neighborhood, was single, and had a lot of money. Now, you could say my mom wanted his money, or you could say that she fell in love with him. I'm not sure which one. They ended up getting married right when I turned 17. My mom and I moved into his house, and it was amazing. It was actually more like a mansion. He had a pool, a movie theater, and a tennis court. So my house was the house that all my friends would come to. And my mom was really happy, I could tell. But there were a few things that I didn't like about my new stepdad. For example, whenever my friends would come over, he would always try to hang out with us. At first, I thought it was just really annoying. But after a year of this happening, I realized it was actually kind of gross. So I opened up to my mom and I told her that I didn't like him hanging around my friends. And my mom laid the hammer down. After that, he would not come around at all whenever my friends and I were downstairs. Here's where things start to get a little icky. When I turned 19, I could tell he was staring at me more and more. Part 2 is... Should I tell my mom that my stepdad, her husband, is trying to hit on me? Disclaimer, is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. When I turned 19 is when I started noticing that he would stare at me more and more. I usually would walk around the house in my bikini whenever I was gonna go in the pool. Sometimes I would wear shorts and crop tops around the house, or be in a sports bra and leggings whenever I was working out. But his staring clearly made me uncomfortable. So I literally had to change the way that I dressed. And I didn't want to tell my mom just because I thought maybe I was reading too much into it. Instead, I told my best friend. And when I told my best friend, she told me that I needed to be really careful around him. She told me I shouldn't even be alone with him in the house. I started to get really paranoid. One day, my stepdad asked me why I stopped dressing the way that I used to. Point blank, I said to him, "Well, you stare a lot and it makes me uncomfortable." The smile on his face turned into pure anger. Then he started calling me stupid and ignorant. He said that I was dumb for thinking that and that he was totally in love with my mom and that he would never ever see me that way. But he continued to stare at me. A few months later, we decided to have a party on my mom's birthday. Well, my stepdad got hammered, and when no one was looking, he sat down next to me and put his hand on my lap. That's when he said that he missed the way that I used to dress. And the look on his face was disgusting. Part 3 is up. Should I tell my mom that my stepdad has been hitting on me, aka her husband? Disclaimer, it's not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. When he put his hand on my lap, I pushed him away and told him he was being disgusting. That's when he grabbed my hand and told me that there was nothing wrong with him appreciating my beauty. And remember, we're at my mom's birthday party. I went over to my mom with the intention to tell her, but she was having so much fun and it was her birthday, I didn't want to spoil it. For the rest of the night, I had to avoid him. He would follow me everywhere and try to grab my hand. I finally went up to my bedroom and locked myself in there. A few days after the party, he came up to me and said, "I need to apologize to you." And I said, "What for?" That's when he said, "You know why." Then he told me he made reservations at a really nice restaurant for us to go to. And of course, I said no. That's when he told me that we were both adults, and that we could hang out together when my mom wasn't around. I said no, and I've been avoiding him since then. But I think avoiding him is doing the opposite. He now started sending me gym selfies. I told him he needed to stop, and he said he just wanted to send me his progress so that I could be proud of him. Ew. Never. I decided that I should move out and I started looking for my own apartment. I thought maybe I should wait until I move out to tell my mom, or maybe not tell her at all. No, this is gonna break her heart and flip her world upside down. He has a really comfy life with him, but I don't think that's worth losing me, right? How should I tell my mom? My biggest fear is that she doesn't believe me. What should I do?
This is why you should never study too much. Kenzie's mom was obsessed with her getting good grades, but she could have never expected the terrifying things that this would lead to. Eventually, Kenzie's mom bought her an old school desk so she could study even more at home, but this was a grave mistake. Soon, Kenzie started to feel a sharp pain in her back, but only when she sat on the desk. This got worse and worse until she just couldn't study anymore, but no one could expect the true reason behind why this was happening. Kenzie's mother started to worry, so they brought her to the doctors. Mysteriously, there was nothing wrong with her, but one day by accident, they found a secret none of them know. Something truly horrifying was happening behind the scenes, and nothing about Kenzie's mysterious back pain or the desk is what they think it is. Follow for part 2. This is why you should never study too much. Kenzie's mom was obsessed with her grades, so she bought her an old school desk so she could study more at home. But Kenzie soon felt a mysterious pain in her back that only be there when she sat in the desk. No one could find the reason why, until one day, after going to doctors and even psychics for help, Kenzie's mother became desperate. But she could have never imagined the true reason behind Kenzie's mysterious back pain, and the truth behind this desk was something much more terrifying. Kenzie's mom decided to take a photo of her in the desk to fix her posture, and this led to their horrifying discovery. When the photo was developed, she saw a shadowy figure hanging above Kenzie, trying to put her feet on Kenzie's shoulders. The next morning, her mom angrily returned the desk, and that's when she found out the figure in the photo was a girl who used to sit in this desk until the pressure of being perfect was just too much to handle, and she passed away in the classroom.
Storytime about when I woke up to a hooded figure standing over me. Due to a multitude of factors, including a recent death of a close friend, I was unbearably depressed at this time in my life. For that reason, my family flew across the country to visit me in LA, where I live. We thought it would be nice to visit Catalina Island. When we arrived, it became apparent to us that it was off-season. It was late November, the weather was cold, and as a result, the island was nearly empty besides locals and a few straggling tourists such as ourselves. Our first priority was to ditch our luggage so we could explore the island, so we immediately checked into our motel, though that word hardly does its place justice. I call it a motel because all the doors to the rooms exited to the outside, but in actuality, our room was one of 20 to 30 quaint guest house-looking buildings arranged in a sort of horseshoe shape around a walkway, with rooms on either side of the path. The entrance to the motel was essentially one of the points of the horseshoe, and if you walked dead straight, you'd reach the room that we were given, essentially on the corner before you have to go right to go further into the horseshoe. So from our room, one path led back to the street, the other further into the secluded maze of rooms. After a day of exploring and having just finished dinner, it was time for a cold, dark walk back to the room. Catalina Island is a decent distance from the mainland, and let me just say, it gets dark. Similarly dark was my headspace after the dinner conversation took a left turn and my overwhelming depression got the best of me. I pulled my black hoodie tighter over my freezing ears and walked ahead of my parents to the hotel room, telling them I just needed to go to sleep. And I did immediately. Depression sometimes makes that easy. I was already losing consciousness as they entered after me, drifting off without so much as a good night. I then woke up to my mom saying my name, a harsh whisper. The room had two beds, my parents' bed closer to the door and mine further in the room. My mom's voice cut through the silence again. She sounded concerned for me. I didn't blame her, considering my mental state at the time. Groggy, I rolled over. "What?" I asked. As my eyes adjusted to the dim moonlight coming in through the curtains, I saw her turn to face me. She was surprised to see me in my bed. Her eyes got wide. If I'm in my bed, who was she talking to? We both looked back to where she was previously looking and see a hooded figure in all black standing over their bed. In that moment, we were both frozen with fear. Part 2, when I woke up to a hooded figure standing over me. We were on an island in the middle of the ocean and woke up to see a hooded stranger looming over us. This moment seemed to last forever. Life isn't like the movies, where the characters unleash a blood-curdling scream. Sometimes the only thing that comes out is panicked and guttural. My mom's words became low and severe as she said my dad's name in a dire voice I've never heard her use before. Then the hooded figure did something so bizarre and unsettling. It didn't advance towards us, but instead crouched in the corner near where it stood. The way it crouched was so absolutely unexpected, even in regards to this already unexpected situation, that it terrified me. It seemed animalistic. I knew two things. The hooded figure had been standing over us sleeping, and it's not acting in any sort of way that I can understand. As opposed to the infinite moment of this figure standing over us mere seconds ago, the series of events that unfolded when my hulking ex-military dad woke up happened in an instant. Suddenly, we were at the door, not knowing which way the intruder went. My mom was screaming, "Get him! Get him!" My dad was running down one path of the horseshoe, further into the hotel, shouting through sheer adrenaline, "I'm going to fucking kill you!" I ran down the other path towards the street. When I got there, not a sign of the intruder, but it became suspiciously quiet behind me. I ran back to the room to find my dad quietly walking back, his head low. He gets really close to me and I hear him say, "It's a fucking kid." So basically, some young teen, tall and lanky as I am in my 20s, wearing all black including a black hoodie, went into the wrong room. Our room. The one time my parents just so happened to forget to lock the door. My mom woke up when he entered and seeing a tall person in a black hoodie thought it was me, assumedly leaving the room in a depressive episode. And when the hooded figure crouched, that was him realizing his mistake and panicking. He was scared of us. As I got back to the room, my mom walked out and hugs the kid, who was now crying his eyes out. I would be too if a massive ex-soldier was sprinting after me with murder in his eyes.
If this happens to you, do not open the door. Once there was a girl named Donna who lived with her father, but he went out of town for a business trip, so Donna was left alone in the house. Then one night she heard the doorbell ring. She went downstairs and was about to open the door, assuming it was her father. But she stopped. Something wasn't right. She looked through the peephole and saw her father staring back at her. His eyes were wide open and he looked terrified. But the doorbell kept ringing. Donna said, "Dad, did you forget your keys?" No answer. "Dad, say something." Still no answer. Donna said, "I'm not opening the door until you say something." Eventually the ringing stopped and Donna fell asleep. The next morning she looked through the peephole again. Her father was still there as if he hadn't moved all night. She finally opened the door and what she saw horrified her. Her father's head was hanging from above the door, and there was a note attached to the doorbell with only 2 words: "Clever girl." Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of a soldier who called his parents before coming home from war. But someone here is hiding something, and all the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. So in this call, the soldier told his parents, "I'll be home in a few days. Do you think I can stay with you for a while?" His parents said, "Of course, you can live with us for as long as you want." Then the soldier said, "One of my buddies here is nowhere to go. Would it be okay if he stayed with us too? But one thing you should know is he accidentally stepped on a landmine and lost his arms and legs." There was a long pause. Then his mom said, "That's fine for a few days, but caring for him would be such a burden for your father and I. Maybe we can find him some kind of a nursing home." The soldier hung up without another word. The next day, the parents were notified that their son took his own life. But it wasn't until they went to collect his body that they found out the truth. Why did the soldier's parents break down in tears the moment the coffin opened? Can you solve this mystery?
Story time about how I almost got kidnapped by my online boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 11th grade. So a year before this all happened, I posted a picture on Instagram saying, add me on Snapchat if you want to be friends. Yes, I was that person. Anyway, so this really cute guy adds me on Snapchat. And after about 3 months talking, he said that he wants to meet me in person. And he didn't sound sus at all, so I was like, sure. So we met at this park that was like 30 minutes away. We met there around 6 o'clock, so when the sun was setting. And he was super nice. It was super romantic. Well, then we went to his house. We watched a movie and we did the nasty. So after that, he asked me if I want a drink. And what I could have swore was 20 minutes later, I wake up in an abandoned farm shed with no clothes or anything. So I start screaming my head off. I don't have my phone or anything, so I start to run. And then he grabs me. He says, if you try to run or you try to scream, I am going to kill you. Like for Part 2 about how I almost got kidnapped by my online boyfriend. So like I said, I wake up in this abandoned farm shed. I don't have no clothes. I don't have a phone. So I try to run and he grabs me. He says that if you run, I will kill you. So I was like, okay, fine. What do you want from me? So he starts putting on lingerie and tells me to also put some on so we can take pictures together. What the actual you know what? So after that, he starts crying and he starts telling me his whole life story and how he's not who I think he is. Turns out that he's 32 and he just goes online pretending that he's 17 years old. So I just try to comfort him, right? It ends up working. He brings me my clothes, tells me to run, or else he's going to once again kill me. So I run, I go to this gas station, get picked up by the police, find my parents. Luckily for me, I paid attention to where everything was. He was arrested, he's still in prison to this day, and I got grounded for 3 months.